I want to speak to the women here a minute because in relationships, when a man is struggling with this stuff, the first thing a woman feels like she has to do is blame herself. You're not adequate enough. You're not beautiful enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not doing enough. You weren't showing up the right way. You weren't doing all these things. And I'm going to say in 9.9% of cases, it's not you. It's not even about you. If your man was in relationship with the most beautiful, perfectly aesthetically pleasing body woman on the planet, he would still be struggling with the same thing. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Through the Mirror. Today we're going to dive into a topic that's really affecting millions of people and I feel like it's not really talked about honestly, and that is pornography. I mean, in today's day and age, this type of content is just a few clicks away. It's on your phone, it's so easily accessible, and it's one of the most consumed forms of media on the internet, taking a staggering 72% of internet usage on just mobile devices is to major pornography sites, which I didn't know it was that high. That kind of blew me away, Andrea. To be honest, that's crazy with all the amount of stuff people are looking up. That's globally. That's not even just the U.S. It seems like everything's worse in the U.S., so that might be a bit higher just in the U.S. But I feel like people talk about this stuff in a very surface level way, and it's just this is bad, this is wrong, you shouldn't do it. It's not good. It's not good for your mental health, or it's wrong. Like there's even just a guilt trip thing when it comes to this, and there's not a whole lot of conversation as to the deeper levels of the why. Why is it on the rise? Why is it such a big thing?
Well, I think it's even deeper is there isn't a space for help because it's like people can talk about, oh, I was addicted to alcohol or drugs or food or this and that, but there's not a lot of room to say, hey, I have a porn problem and I need help, but especially like in the more religious community because everything is so, oh, that's just bad. You just need to quit and this and that. And there's no tools or a path forward really given in some of these situations, or nobody ever comes forward and figures it out on their own. And in some cases, these are people that started during childhood, either a parent was harmful and exposed them to it intentionally or on accident that happened, which that is the case often, sadly, because I was also saw some other studies that kids as young as 7 now are being exposed to pornography. I know the normal statistics are around 12, but I've seen where it's 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, personal conversations with other parents and people. So it's a big issue, but I don't think there's a lot of help in it. And it's highly addictive and it actually can rewire and damage your brain, especially when you think about something like this being a problem in childhood before a child can even comprehend the situation, picking up on things in that environment and what pornography is and thinking that is normal or thinking that's okay. And I saw on here that 80% of pornography has some form of violence, be it verbally or physically. So then you're also normalizing violent behaviors and all kinds of things that, you shouldn't be exposed to, especially if you don't even know what sex is.
No, and that absolutely, and the fact that there's that much of pornography portrays some kind of violence, and the statistics around children is really alarming. I mean, you have 73% of teens between the ages of 13 and 17 are now reporting to have viewed pornography in one way, shape, or form. And among those teens, 79% of those say they used it to learn about sex. And I mean, one, pornography is not real. It's not a real, they're actors. They are
Fiction.
actors. And they're what you're seeing in that is not even what would necessarily be best for people to experience in that, or be the most pleasurable in that. It's all meant for instant gratification and visualization. And there's multiple studies behind these things. So you have children going to this stuff to try and learn about sex in a massive amount. 73% of teens is a huge number. We have almost three-fourths of our children going to pornography now, and then almost 80% of those are just so they can learn about what sex is, how to have sex, what is it about. And like you said, one, it's not real intimacy, it's not, but it's also violent. Like they're
Mhm.
normalizing violent behavior in sex. And one, what does that portray to young boys who are trying to, at that age, they're discovering what their masculinity is. What is it like to be a man? How am I supposed to be a man? How does a man, treat a woman intimately? And then for a woman, how is a man supposed to treat me? And this is normalized. It's very, very alarming and dangerous. I mean, I don't even think we're seeing the worst of the effects it's going to have on society if these are the numbers of children that are starting to see this
I mean, I
stuff.
I think it's already had its effect on society. And then the other part I'd like to mention outside of it being unrealistic and et cetera, a lot of trafficking is related to pornography. So some of these things that people are watching, they don't know if the person's being forced, coerced, they don't know if it's a minor. So there's all kinds of really messed up and twisted avenues here in the entire situation beyond even just, your average, people that claim to be porn stars and stuff. There's also the exploitation of the most vulnerable. And you don't know if you're supporting that. You don't know if that's what you're watching. So there's so many avenues here, things that are messed up. And I mean, we can keep digging into that. But I want to say too, the situation is if you're struggling in this and it's something that it's like, oh, I can't just quit and et cetera, it really takes a deep dive inward to see what's going on, to see why are you wanting this? What is going on in your life? Where did this start? And a lot of people don't know to ask those questions because it's automatic, oh, you're doing something wrong or you're a sinner or this and that, instead of, okay, let's get to the root cause here and have a solution and tools forward. But that starts also with asking for help if you don't know what to do on your own.
And we have to get to a point, like in society, like nobody shames somebody for going to, a rehab center for getting help on substance abuse or AA meetings for drinking and stuff like that. And matter of fact, people are applauded for being brave enough to do that. But like you said earlier, pornography, it's like it's in its own thing. It's one of those suffer in silence, figure it out, or you don't, or and you're just going to suffer. And that really has to change in society if this is going to get better. Because I mean, what we've talked numerous times on the show about, addictions and stuff are not necessarily a problem. It's the solution to a problem, an internal problem.
Well, they're
Whether
a
you're
symptom of the problem.
they're a symptom, it's a coping mechanism for something else. Going inward and finding what is that? What am I coping? What am I medicating? What am I running from? What have I, what trauma is there that has been unprocessed? And I know with a lot of people, it has to do with a lack of love for yourself or even know how to express love and a fear of love. Love wasn't safe for you. So pornography is a very quick and easy
Oh yeah.
gratification and a dopamine hit. Like you don't have to work for it. You're never rejected when you're
Mhm.
in pornography. When you're watching, like nobody ever's telling you no. You're quote unquote accepted for who you are, and it's the ultimate bypass, and you don't have to do the work of a relationship. You don't have to create and work on and build actual intimacy with a partner, which that's what that is. You don't all of a sudden, meet somebody and boom, you have just this wonderful connected intimate relationship with this person. It takes work and it can be uncomfortable, and you have to talk about things and expose vulnerable parts of yourself to that person in order to build and create that. And that's for somebody who was taught that that's not a good idea, that that's not safe. It's very scary and very hard to do. So pornography is a shortcut to get that acceptance that you were craving without any of the rejection. And that's such a hard thing for people to come to terms with, is the why do I need to run to this? Why is it an overwhelming thing that I just have to run to this, but I can't even have a conversation with those closest to me?
And I think when it comes to children, there's a rampant issue where a lot of sexual predators will introduce children to pornography to get them comfortable with things that will come after in the hopes that they can groom them and get them to a certain point. You see this in a lot of the news and cases where they're like, oh, this happened to this child. And you find out later they were slowly introduced to pornography, sometimes in family dynamics, sometimes outside of that. And other studies also show that, like, porn addiction and consistent porn users, in a lot of cases, when that high and that hit is no longer enough, they resort to things like violence and rape and even pedophilia. So it's like a trickling problem that grows and grows, especially depending on how far gone, I guess, the person has become. And that's another rampant problem in the porn industry.
Oh, I mean, it's very similar. I think pornography is right there with drugs, right? Because you see that in drug addicts all the time, where that's where a lot of the ODs happen. Because to get that same, everybody's chasing that first hit, that first crazy wow moment, and you can only get that by more and more and more as time goes
Mhm.
on. And it's the same exact thing with pornography. And there's been studies that show that to get that same kind of dopamine hit, that same kind of arousal, that same kind of thing that you first had, you have to get into, whether it be more violent, more perverse, more dark things to get that same. So that's where people very quickly, start going from just normal stuff to, oh my gosh, you're talking, like you said, pedophilia, or even stuff with animals and everything. Like it gets very dark very quickly because you're chasing that same high, so to speak, with it. And
Mhm.
you start, people sit there and wonder, how did it get this far? How did it get this bad? People just, again, stick their nose up at it. Oh my gosh, this person did that. They're just, wow, that doesn't make any sense. No, there's actually a very obvious path to how that happened, where we got there.
Mhm.
And I know it's a much bigger problem in men. And I know about 92% of men reported consuming pornography within the past month, and 60% of women in the US. So, and that was a study done last year. So you have it's not huge, but it's still pretty obvious that this is mostly or predominantly more rampant within men, especially young men between the ages of 15 and 35.
Yeah, and the other thing about like pornography too is in the scientific realm, it actually reduces brain matter and it also creates a lower activity in the brain's reward system. So essentially, by doing porn and getting addicted to it, you are eventually going to and degrade your intelligence. Your brain is not going to work correctly, and it's a big issue because then think about how your brain is getting so used to this and you're kind of like, I want to say, going backwards in your development. And then it's going to be even harder to get out because now you're like on autopilot in the brain. You're addicted. You're not going to be able to focus in life in the ways you should be. It's going to express in your outer life even if you don't recognize it, and that's in your relationships. And if you're not in a relationship, it still is going to affect you. Because I'm sure, like, there's a lot of single people that do pornography, and it's got nothing to do with the spouse, and that's a whole nother topic. But the point is that this isn't a beneficial situation because you're hitting that dopamine reward center, and the more you hit that, the higher it goes. The higher the hit has to be next time, and then when you're not on that high, you get the addict kind of symptoms. You get the depression, feeling like your low self-esteem, feeling fatigued, all these things start coming into play. So you're harming your health too. So not even just on the mental, emotional aspects of it or the addiction aspects of it, your physical body is going to suffer as well.
Right, and there was studies done that a lot of porn use, especially around men, it's not even in tandem with like chronic masturbation either. Men will just watch it just to get that dopamine hit, that high, and like you said, it's like an autopilot thing. And pornography gives such a unrealistic expectations when it comes to, intimacy. and that it's all visual. And there's it's actually really, really sad. There's among men under 35 with heavy porn use, about 45% of them report erectile dysfunction.
Mhm.
So you have men that in their personal lives and their intimate relationships, they're not even able to perform as a result of that. And I think a lot of that has to do with that, again, that unrealistic expectation. I mean, you're not going to get what you're watching like that because it's not real.
And the damage reduces dopamine sensitivity. Like I said, you have to have the higher and the higher hit. And then also then you have this disconnection, right? Because also men don't want to feel like they're inadequate and they don't want to be rejected. So then in this situation, if you don't have, if let's just say, and if you're in a relationship and this is a problem and your partner doesn't even know it's a problem and etc., then they can't help you. Or in this case, if for a man that's a big deal, then there's going to be fear of rejection, the emotional damage to both of you, and all these things start coming into play. And that even in some cases make a person run even more to porn instead of finding a solution. So then you have this dynamic, in a lot of like the harsher circles, it's, oh, like I've had people tell me, oh, I never spoke up about my porn problems because my partner will leave me, or my partner won't talk to me about it, or I've hid it from my partner and I've done wrong by doing this to them, like lying to them and stuff. So there's this whole dysfunctional behavioral pattern that's going to start, and that's going to add to it because, as I've talked about it before on some of our podcasts, your energy and emotions also get trapped. And one of the prominent areas this would be the case would be in the reproductive system when it comes to connection and emotional connection with your partner and relationship dysfunction. So there's a whole big mess, I guess I could say, looming in the situation. And you have to have a path forward to solve the problem and to find the root cause. And I liked one of the relationship coaches I follow. He talked about how a lot of the reasons men run to porn is fear of connection, fear of real intimacy, fear of rejection. And when you dig into that stuff, then you have a whole nother layer. Okay, so what happened a long time ago then? Because if you like say you had a healthy relationship where none of these things happened to you in the relationship, that's where you have to start digging. Okay, what happened in childhood? A lot of this can be related to childhood sex abuse. Okay, and you keep going back and back, and you have to really like go through layers. It's the whole person. So it's beyond just saying, "I'll just quit porn and go to a meeting and everything will be fine." I would say that you're going to have to actually do the work and find tools to have a healthy relationship with yourself, to be able to have a healthy relationship with others and your partner.
And a lot of the main tool that is portrayed on how to get out of pornography is just to will and muscle your way through it. Like just, that's in men's circles, there's, the accountability partner type thing, or the, stuff on your computer, your phone, or stuff like that to prevent you from doing it. And, that's not a permanent solution. That is a band-aid on a broken leg because that's not dealing with the root cause as to the why. Why are you running to that? Why are you doing that? It's because the moment you're able to and there's an opportunity, you are going to find yourself slipping right back into it because you never addressed the problem. And you know, and that does again even more damage to your own self-confidence that you can beat something because then you're up. I did it again. I failed again. I went back to it. I said I wasn't going to do that. I can't. I'm not strong enough to get through this. There's nobody I can talk to about this. If I do, the person I did talk to is now getting frustrated because I keep slipping back. So I can't tell them again. They can't take it. My partner won't be able to handle it. It's this vicious cycle of medicate, self-hate, repeat. And you end up in a very, very dark place with that. And again, feeling very much alone. And the only relief to the shame, the guilt, and the loneliness is the very, in your mind, and stuck in that is the very thing that's creating your own torment. It's a very, very twisted, vicious cycle that people, the big industries and the powers to be know about this and know about this big problem. But the sad part is globally, the pornography industry generates $97 billion annually. Like it's huge. It's bigger than a lot of media conglomerates and outlets out there. Like it's huge. So you're not going to walk away from that. I mean, there's sex and this stuff has been around for
Well, and
tens
I
of
think
thousands of years too.
on top of that is beyond the pornography, like websites and stuff, you now have OnlyFans, which that in itself is really sad because in that industry you have, some 18-year-old girl that's like, wow, I got on here and I'm making millions of dollars. Why would I stop? And you see that being a common thread now. And then, of course you have men supporting it or women supporting it and et cetera. So it's just growing and growing. And that's not in a sense to like bash or shame or come after these people. What I'm saying is like, you don't understand what that's doing to yourself because I can tell you this, I think about it all the time. I can picture me at 18-year-old me. Granted, I was really mature for my age, but I can't imagine the pain it would be to maybe be an OnlyFans person, model, and then be 35, 40 and decide that was a mistake. And you're forever on the internet and you're forever in someone's phone and you can't take it back. The internet is
Mm.
forever. Like, I'm really thankful, like, for I guess a lot of things in my life because I didn't have a phone till 19. I didn't have internet till 19. And in that aspect, I was probably the last generation to experience that. Granted, there's a lot of other things that I wish didn't go on in that time period, but I can imagine like that temptation, like, oh, I have no money and I can just sell pictures of myself and videos and have millions and millions of dollars and not understand, the detriment to that, because like
Well,
everything
that
is energy. So if you're connecting with someone, even in a video capacity, you're still connecting with that person. So you don't understand the damage in the long run. And a lot of these girls are 18, 20 years old and they're going to regret it. I promise you. People change over time. A lot of people do. They're going to regret it someday, and there'll be no going back when it comes to you being all over the internet.
and there's already a lot of women coming out and being like it was wrong. I was either coerced or I was naive and it was a quick way again to make money, pay off student loans, whatever it was, and they've already regret it and they're like, but my body's out there forever for people to see and
Mhm.
there's nothing I can do about it and it really wrecks them. But you talk about the OnlyFans, that is a whole nother level to the addiction because it's not just what that does in somebody, and especially a man's brain. You're no longer just, it's just a video that millions of people have seen and they saw the same thing. It's like, oh, I have this one person's attention, like this is tailored for me. It gives that persona of you're like your waitress at a restaurant right now. This person's just about me right now. So again, you have that same instant gratification, no rejection, because these girls are after your money, so they're going to do whatever to, get your money and make you feel wanted, desired, appreciated, attractive, charismatic, all these things that you don't feel you are. So it gives that takes away that fear of rejection like times 10 on the return. And that's why OnlyFans has, in my opinion, has skyrocketed so much and has even like hurt the normal porn industry with because the amount of girls that can just go do their own thing now and they don't need to be a part of a label or anything. It's just like it hurt the porn industry for the big businesses, but it's taken over. Like, and then you have the other aspect of it, of the predatorial aspect of that's rampant now because
Mhm.
you have sick, twisted individuals that have fantasized about certain girls, and it's like, oh my god,
And they go find them.
oh my god, she has an OnlyFans account, and then oh my gosh, it's like it's really, you're creating a whole nother caliber of problem with sexual predators in society. And because anybody before, you had to like be discovered to be a popular and well-known, porn star. Now
And that was just like
anybody with a
insert.
smartphone can go do that and your neighborhood predator can find out about it. It's a lot. There's a whole nother level of danger to the.
And I just want to put out here too, this doesn't mean that you get to blame, the person doing like making these videos and stuff for your own self, but your own behavior. Like I see it all the time. Well, if women would just do this and women would do that, well, no, you have a personal responsibility. The woman doing it and the person consuming it, consumer, or you have your own personal responsibility. In no way, shape, or form is anyone else responsible for your choices. And that includes your own healing and you're taking ownership and changing and choosing a different path. Because personally, I don't want to be stupid. Like, so in my mind, if you're addicted to porn and you're obsessed with porn, you're ultimately choosing to be stupid because your brain is going to slowly deteriorate. You are devolving. Pornography is devolving because it's not real. It's not real connection and intimacy. And intimacy is so much more than sexuality. Sexuality is a very big part of intimacy and it's wonderful and can be so sacred, but there's also emotional safety and connection and communication and all these other things that come together. I would say sexuality is supposed to be a blossom of those things coming together and two people caring for each other and taking each other as a part of themselves. And I feel like in society we have that so backwards now, right? It's like, oh, we sleep around first or we go into that kind of thing first without considering the other parts, the really important parts, especially for women, because we're more emotionally connected as compared to a man. That's another way of showing affection, but you need both. Both those things have to matter. And in porn, you get none of that. Don't get me wrong, OnlyFans, I wouldn't blame some of these men if maybe they're lonely and they have someone to talk to and they can pay to talk to them. I mean, I know some people that have done OnlyFans and have quit now, but they said some of it they weren't doing pornography. They were just having conversations with people. They were alone and making them feel better and talking about their feelings and nobody would ever know. And I think that just also shows a desperation and a need for connection and loneliness in society.
We're all made for connection. We're all made to have that deep, intimate connection. And like you said, that doesn't just mean sexually. You're supposed to have deep, intimate connection with your parents, your children, those closest in your life. And when that is severely lacking or you never had it and you never
Um,
experienced it, like you said, sexuality is a big part of intimacy, and especially in, with your partner or spouse. But if you don't even know how or haven't even experienced that, and the thing to do is to go get it from pornography or for that, like that's you're substituting. It's a substitute, and it's a very poor substitute, and it's a very damaging substitute. And there's something so much better out there for people to
I think a lot
experience.
of this is promoted by a bunch of pendulums in society, right? So you have the secular, I guess you could say, pendulum way out there where it's, pornography, OnlyFans, all these really, really hardcore things are promoted and it's just normalized. And I've worked with men that bragged about their body counts and I would just sit there like, what? Why is that a flex? Like, was it because you wanted to be the person or because you have a tally mark and a pad? That's really sick, like twisted, right? And women are afraid of that, obviously. And then you have the other side where you have like the really religious circles where there's this like really like, oh, don't learn anything. They give you very surface level explanations about sexuality, or they give you a very shame and guilt perspective, like don't do X, Y, Z or else. But they never give you well, let's talk about how beautiful sex is. Let's talk about that connection. Here's how it's supposed to be. Here's a really good masculine example of what a man should be to a woman, and here's what a woman should accept, what is acceptable. That you're equal in this. This isn't a like, I don't know, like I grew up hearing things like from people, well, even if he's, mad, just sleep with them. You don't have to enjoy it, but just do your duty. And I'm like, always just like, what? So you're promoting being with someone and not even wanting to do that and just do it because it'll make them feel better. That's not connection. And I would say that's really twisted. So I've heard stuff like that. And then you have, the really religious stuff in that area. So you're getting these pendulums of not teaching what intimacy looks like, not having good examples. If you're a child and you were sexually abused, of course, your entire like nervous system is going to be terrified of sexuality because you don't know anything better until you have to go and take the brave steps to have a partner or have someone that's in that experience. So there's just so many factors here. And then if you did have that and you get in a relationship with someone healthy, now you have to relearn everything because the healthy person's going to go, hey, wait a minute, this isn't normal. I think we need to like figure this out together, which is a healthy solution. But people aren't having these conversations. So if you can't have these conversations where sex is taboo here, where everything's over sexualized here, then how is there this ground to have growth, connection, and what real intimacy looks like?
Right. Well, and speaking on the side of men, men have never, a majority of men have never had a safe space to explore their own sexuality, their wants, their desires in a healthy way, because
Mhm.
a lot of that has been shamed or guilted or just perverted because of all this. I mean, we talked about the numbers at the beginning of the episode of how this is affecting our youth, and just to touch on again on the unrealistic expectations on a little bit of a different light. Um, you're looking at stuff that is like the top 0.1% of 1% of attractive people in society, right? So you're constantly conditioning yourself, and there's a big problem in society with the there's always something better. There's always something better. There's always something a little bit better, a little bit better body or a little bit better eye color, something like that. And for men, there's a lot more of a physical aspect with men as opposed to the emotional aspect with women. So right out the gate, your heightened expectation of what the most wonderful, intimate sexual experience with a woman is something that a woman of a physical caliber that you might actually never even meet in your lifetime, let alone enter a relationship with like that. So you're setting yourself up for unrealistic expectations and disappointment right out the gate, and then you're also missing some of the chances for some of the best freeing, intimate, wonderful relationships you could ever have, because at a very early age you're being programmed to go, this is what I'm supposed to want, this is what I'm supposed to shoot for. And that's where you talked about these men with these body counts and taking it off. It's like something better. Oh, this hot girl and that hot girl and this and this and that, and it's like that's literally what men are being conditioned to believe is the goal to achieve, to experience all this different stuff, to have these wonderful fantasy like encounters that aren't real, and you're never going to obtain that. It's like a dog chasing your tail, only you realize the tail's not even there. You're chasing something that doesn't exist.
I think we mentioned this back to maybe a podcast or two ago about studies and like polls in America showing that 80% of women never even experience like orgasm. And again, this is a connection issue. Like this is not communicating. This is men not, learning actually how to treat a woman, learning what is actually pleasurable for a woman and the right way, the steps. I liked in like Eastern cultures, they really emphasized how you treat a woman. They really respected it. They held sex as sacred. They really did have the goal for it to be between only, the person you spent your rest of your life with. Now, does that mean that always happens for everyone? Does that mean you're not good enough if it can't happen that way? Because I mean, people get divorced, bad things happen, we get into bad relationships. That doesn't matter. But if you hold, I guess I should say, if you hold yourself to a standard, you hold yourself to, I value this so much and it's such a beautiful connection. I want to make sure I find someone that values it just like I do, and find other ways, to explore and understand these things. And it needs to be beyond, I think in the public education system, they give you some talk and they put bananas down in condoms, and like that's not a sexual education. That's like, here's the car, but we didn't really teach you how the engine worked, but we expect you to build a car, right?
Here's the steering wheel, the gas pedal. There's your
But
there.
yeah, so, and I think that's what, like, again, this goes back to families and taking initiative and actually learning things and having the mindset of, okay, there's more to this than just, the religious dogma around it, or well, here's the basics, don't get pregnant, get on birth control. That's not teaching intimacy.
Right.
And I would say, like, that's important. Like, in our relationship, that's important. There's so many things going wrong here. But if these things were addressed, there wouldn't be this huge demand from pornography. There would be less. And this is how things change. This is how things go away. Because the more people are like, yeah, this is like nothing. This isn't worth it. This isn't actually going to benefit me. The health aspects of it or the emotional aspects of it. I am going to choose something better than this. And then you do change society. The demand goes away. So I think it's, again, we talk about this all the time. The way to have change happen is in your own self, in the people around you, taking steps to go, you know what, there is a better path, and then share that with people that want to know. Have conversations. Go, hey, this doesn't have to be about guilt and shame and all these things. Let's find a solution. Let's open up and let's have real talks. That's why we're doing this episode, because there isn't a space to have these real conversations. And it doesn't matter who doesn't like it. it needs to happen because it's not happening enough.
No, it's really not. And it's actually gotten the exact opposite. Like there's conversations being had about it, but it's in the complete wrong way to where it's become such a big normalized thing that people just talk about it. And like it's a normal, like, oh yeah, I watch that, you watch that, everybody watches that. Who doesn't watch that? Who doesn't do that? Like it's such a like it's like back in the what 50s and 60s where everybody smoked a cigarette. Like okay, who doesn't smoke cigarettes? You know, like that was just the normal thing to do. You smoked a cigarette. So we're talking about it and like starting to find identity and make it socially normal and acceptable. But I think if people are brutally honest with themselves and really sit down and go, am I proud of this? Do I feel like this is good for me? Do I feel like this is helping me? Do I feel like this is bettering my life? If you're really honest with yourself, the answer is going to be no. I've
Mhm.
never talked with somebody who was really honest with themselves and go, yeah, you know what, this was great. This is great. This is the path I want with my life, and this is what I want out of life is this right here. It's
Well,
just
and this
not
just
it's not
goes,
real.
it goes back to the consumerism and distraction this society has become to where anything to kind of keep people docile and away from accomplishing what matters most in their lives and paying attention. So that's the other aspects here. And if you're so pulled by all these different things, you have porn, video games, all these different directions, you really can't live. You can't be
Mhm.
present for your families. You can't be present in your career, your job, whatever role you're playing in this world, because you're always distracted and something has control over you. And I think like that's the sad part. And that's where this needs to not be a let's just guilt and shame people into hoping they change. It just doesn't work. Like any man that wants to be brave enough to say, you know, I need help in this, I applaud you. And I've told a lot of women this, like, you need to be able to, in your relationship, if this is the case, you need to be able to have the capacity to understand where they're coming from and if they want to change and get help and help them and set boundaries. Of course, I'm not saying have some manipulative, abusive spouse tell you, I'm sorry every 5 minutes, and then they keep doing the same thing over and over again with no change. But that also doesn't mean that they might not not screw up again or that something isn't going to be perfect at first because now you have to take it head on. I do believe that people that really want to change, something like that, yeah, they can go, I'm quitting cold turkey and I'm committed to this. I'm going to need help through this. You know, we share tools like, you know, body coding, where, you know, our bodies hold on to our trauma and emotions if they're not addressed and they're suppressed. Something like that can make all the difference to help you stop coping, to stop craving, to stop wanting things that are harming you. There's your diet. Your diet matters because if you're eating a bunch of junk, how is your body going to function emotionally, physically, or keep you from, you know, feeling anxious all the time or wanting to go back to certain patterns? All this comes together in the whole you, and we just need to start taking steps to understand that there is the whole you that needs addressed here, and perhaps past patterns that you are not even aware of in your life.
I want to speak to the women here a minute because, you know, you brought up a really, really strong and even emotional point that's going to be difficult for women. And because in relationships, when a man is struggling with this stuff, the first thing a woman wants to feels like she has to do is blame herself. You're not adequate
Mhm.
enough. You're not beautiful enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not doing enough. You weren't showing up the right way. You weren't doing all these things. And I'm going to say, in 9.9% of cases, it's not you. It's not even about you. And I guarantee you, if your partner, if your man was in relationship with the most beautiful, perfectly aesthetically pleasing body woman on the planet, he would still be struggling with the same thing because like we've talked about, it is not about the looks. It is about a deep rooted issue with lack of love for yourself, a fear of intimacy, fear of rejection, and it doesn't have anything to do with you. So if your man can be honest with you and himself and actually want to get help, you're going to have to be able to get to the point within yourself that this is not on me. This is not my fault. I'm not the cause. I am enough and I can be enough for him and work through this with him.
And if they're not willing to work through it, set your boundaries and hold your standards high because you don't have to
Because you
lower
are
your
enough.
standards. Yeah. You don't need to lower your standards to meet them in their misery or their dysfunction. And I think that's,
Mhm.
you know, as women, we make that mistake often because you want to be beautiful, you want to be perfect, and etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And women have this impossible standard to hold to in society, and it's become the beauty, the makeup, the modeling, the surgeries, the drugs, everything, and you have this great lie of what beauty is supposed to be, and it's for the average woman, it's not even obtainable. It's not realistically obtainable without hundreds of thousands of dollars and a lot of going under the knife and starving yourself and all this crazy stuff that really doesn't feel you. So you start to think, oh, well, it's because I'm not that. And it's very easy to spiral into a self-hate thing, all because of my partner has a problem. My partner has issues that they're working through, and that's actually taking their internal battle and making it your own when that's not yours to carry like that.
And I would say, like, I've seen it over and over again. I've talked to so many women over the years. You know, they completely change themselves for someone doing this. And it's like, you're, we need to normalize our raw natural beauty. You know, me and a friend talked about this today, but makeup's fun, but you should know that you're beautiful without makeup. Hair dye's fun, but your normal hair color is enough. Your body's not perfect. Great. Nobody is. These things need to be the standard. Like, it's hard these days because you look on social media and you got all these filters and AI and so and so looks so perfect. Then you see them in person and you're like, wait, they don't look like that. I mean, I've fallen for the traps too. Years ago, I remember and not that I didn't like my hair like blonde, but I used to have blonde bleached hair. And when I really took an internal reflection with myself, I wasn't dyeing my hair blonde because I liked blonde hair. I was dyeing it because I didn't think I was good enough in my beautiful dark brown hair. And, these things really affect us when we don't realize it because we lie to ourselves, right? Tell us, well, I'm going to dye my hair because I like it. But it's really not the case. It's because someone else told you it's your hair that's better blonde, even though their opinion shouldn't have mattered because you were good enough with brown hair. Don't get me wrong. If you want to dye your hair because you love it, go for it. But it has to be because you loved it, because it's something you wanted. And not to mention, as a naturopath, I just saw, what was it, a few days ago, Trey, that woman died from a mommy makeover. She left 4 kids
Yeah,
behind at 47. And it's
yeah.
like, me, while I'm not telling people what to do with their bodies and etc., but that's not worth it, right? And not to mention the internal damage to the lymphatic system and etc. Don't get me wrong, there's cases where I'm sure some of these things are necessary. Like I've seen some damage to women's bodies where they're like, yeah, I had to get something done because I was 700 pounds at one time and now I have loads of skin hanging down. But I'm not seeing that in the younger generation. I'm seeing women that are like in their 20s going and getting a mommy makeover, getting plastic surgery, getting their chest changed, even though there's nothing wrong with their chest. And all of it, when you get to talking to them, isn't because it's something that they wanted. It's because the outer influences told them they were not good enough. They're not beautiful enough.
Mhm.
Your nose doesn't look right. Your lips aren't big enough. So these things really need to address at the root cause too, because that's again feeling the same dysfunction. It's feeling the same, oh well, this is all my fault. My husband went and did pornography because I'm just not good enough. I didn't do enough.
Again, just to kind of connect some dots for women to try and get you to understand some of what we're talking about. You have boys, not men, boys being introduced to pornography before they can really even comprehend what they're looking at. Honestly, like they don't even know what's going on, and being conditioned from a very young age on impossible standards of what women should be physically. So you have, and then in return, women trying to become something that isn't really obtainable, and men haven't even figured out that what their desire, what they were conditioned to desire as a child, will not fulfill them. So as a woman, you are trying to you are blaming yourself for not being something that will not fulfill the man. You are crying yourself to sleep, trying to wrap your head around why he would do this, why you're not enough, and what you think would be enough would never satisfy him in the way you think. He might think it would, but I promise you it will not. And you have this perpetual cycle that has been playing out for decades now. And I will say, if you look hundreds of years ago, just look at sculptures of women hundreds of years ago. There's all kinds of nude sculptures, beautiful sculptures of how men looked at women and their beauty. There's not a bunch of boob jobs and BBLs and all this other stuff back there. It was women in their natural, raw beauty. And yes, some of them had curves, some of them were a bit thinner, some of them were, bigger, some of them had bigger thighs or thinner thighs. Like there was so many different avenues with it, but there was beauty, and I would even say on a energetic level to where you would see something radiating off of a woman, and it wasn't just her physical appearance. It was something that she carried. There's just something about a woman who knows her worth and her value and loves herself, and that is infectious. Men love that, and they don't even know what they are loving about that, but it really hits the next level. So I just really want to encourage women, quit trying to become something that one isn't really obtainable. But even so, even if you did, would not bring you the happiness that you would want, and it would not get you the acceptance that you want either, because no, that'll never satisfy anybody.
And even deeper too, like some people, I've had some people, I think I made a post about pornography years ago, and some people are like, well, me and my husband do it together. Okay. So if you agree upon that and that's what you want to do, fine. It doesn't change the brain situation. And, why would you want the fake thing if you had the real thing? And if the real thing is not deeply connecting and you need to like change how you're doing things, then you need to have that conversation. And if you're in a relationship where where you're not having sex, and this is the sad truth too, is there's so many statistics saying that some men and women go without sex in their relationship a year at a time or only have it every 6 months and stuff. I found that rather shocking, actually, reading that. Then you either need to agree that this is okay or you need to move on from each other, because there's no point staying in a relationship where you can't be connected and you can't be yourself and you can't express and you can't, for a man, sexuality, physical intimacy is a way to show affection when they're a healed person, not a violent or, controlling way. And then for women, it's a very deep connection as well, because the emotions and just being loved and cared for, those things are why we get married. These are the reasons why we go into a relationship. So if that's not in it and that's not what you agreed upon, then we also need to stop lying to ourselves and just going, oh, we're just going to coast through life, stay for the kids, do all these other things. If you have choices, make choices. Not everybody has choices. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of situations where people stay because, well, if I leave my kids, they'll end up with an abuser. So I'd rather just sacrifice myself till they turn 18. I would totally understand that. But when it comes to the topic of relationships and stuff, we just need to start having a really big raw reality check and finding out what do you agreeing upon in that relationship. And that's nobody else's business. Like I see so many people, oh, I would never have that relationship. Well, did you hear what she's doing? Oh, well, they're gay. It's none of your business. Like, worry about yourself and focus on the life you want to have. Focus on your inner world, heal stuff. I would say that getting your brain damaged from porn is definitely not worth it. And I think that's the point here, is like we just need to want to have deeper connected relationships with people in our lives and with ourselves, most importantly.
I mean, if people agree whatever they want in their relationships, but I would little something to think about, if you can't be satisfied with each other's company and intimacy and sexuality, and it requires an outside source like pornography to get you guys going, then at the end of the day, what do you have between the two of you? It's just something to think about. It's rough, but yeah, a lot of this stuff is not being talked about, and I know there's everybody's got an opinion on pornography and the do's and the don'ts and the whys.
Well, this is our opinion and facts. There are facts here, definitely facts,
There's
but we're
definitely
allowed to
some
have
facts in there.
our opinions and speak from, living our lives in this generation and the world and the many conversations we've had and our own personal experiences.
Mhm.
So, and I
I
think that's the authenticity of the conversation.
and I do want to put my tinfoil hat on for just a minute, since the
Oh
people
no.
who are sticking around for 55 minutes of the episode, are in it. So I'll put the tinfoil hat on for a minute. I think a big part of pornography is a much broader tool being used to control people and control a population and keep people docile, keep people medicated. Because I mean, what are you really doing with your life if you're stuck in perpetual addiction with pornography, video games, and all this stuff? You're not actually building anything real in your life. So you become very docile. You become a robot, and the powers to be can do whatever they want with the society numbed and medicated and like that. So there's a much higher down, picture of that in my opinion, but
Yeah,
that's
there is definitely. I mean, it's obviously been around in some way. Like the internet hasn't been around, but there's things like this have been around for ages, but not on the level that you can access it now because of pornography. And then I saw an article the other day. They're trying to pass laws now because really sick people are taking pictures of children, random children, and putting them in AI and making child photos and pornography using AI. So now again, we have an advancement in society. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's good things with AI, but the bad things are going to start spiraling out of control like usual. That would be one of them. Someone can go crop my photo and do that. And it's like, okay, that's disturbing, right? I can't do
Mhm.
anything really about it. I put myself out there. It's like, yeah. So again, we created another new thing. So now we have the internet aspect of pornography and OnlyFans, and now here comes trickling in the new one. And it's just you can't regulate morality either. So yeah, they can
Mhm.
pass laws and stuff, but again,
Well, and
how do you guys stop people from being sick and disgusting? Because pedophiles are a rampant issue, as you can see right now. We don't even want to do anything about the ones that have been exposed in our countries.
I think me and you talked about this personally a week or two ago. There's some of this stuff coming out with robots, sex robots now. I mean, that's another big leap in technological advancement where you're not gonna you don't have to fear rejection. You don't have to do much work in the relationship. You're not having real intimacy, but you're getting that quick hit, that quick dopamine release, and those things are becoming very, very, very realistic and lifelike. And you throw AI in the mix with these, and then they're gonna have to start to have a personality and tailor to you and everything. And then you're slowly replacing human connection in one of the most important sacred ways in humanity. And where does that go from there? Is it most of my friend a lot of my best friends are robot, and
Okay, I
it's
would be kind of really excited if like I'm a Star Trek geek. So if data became a thing, I would be okay. I'm just gonna admit it right now for everybody. If Data from like Star Trek was a thing, he would be my best friend. I loved him my whole teenage years. He's never going to change. If Data was real, I would be super excited. Not his twin brother, but you know,
I
everybody
think
can make fun of me now finding out
we
I
might
was right.
I think we're still a few hundred years away from
I
sentient robotic life, but it's just again all these outer lying factors that we're talking about really becomes like they're important to talk about and have awareness on and recognize the path and some red flags. Really, they kind of all go away when you start working on some of the points we talked about, some of the things that can help you get away from that and grow and as an individual and as a couple, and it'll
Uh, I'll add to this too for the parents. We ultimately can do our best for our children. The society you're in, if your kid goes to public school, if they have access to the internet, I strongly encourage parents not to allow their children to have a smartphone and access to the internet, or if they need a phone for school because they go to public school, then it needs to be locked, restricted, whatever, because ultimately stuff's going to happen. It doesn't make you a bad, horrible parent when accidents happen. But let me put it this way. Your son accidentally stumbles upon pornography and he has no clue what it is. He got curious. Someone told him about it. The worst thing you could ever do is shame and get in his face over it because at the end of the day, this is a moment in his life that is going to change how he views the world forever, depending on how you respond. And if you're a safe space for that child or your daughter, they can come to you and, hey, I saw this, mom, and this will speak to your relationship, and it really made me uncomfortable. I don't understand what it is. You're going to have to sit down and explain to your child the right way, and hopefully you know the right way to do this. and help them through that. Not shame them, not throw them in the room, not ground them, but be there for them because they don't understand. They didn't know what they were looking into. They don't understand these things. I don't care if they're 12 or 16. Like, you need to be a leader and set an example here and take an opportunity to not set your child up for more pain and suffering because, well, you came down so hard on them in a situation that was way out of their control and they had no idea what they were getting into. And they're still your child.
And I would say, in my opinion, you really only have a couple opportunities to be that for your child before that's not going to be a conversation that they're going to have with you out of lack of trust. So definitely encourage to, and it's hard. It's hard to be that space for your child when you're trying to figure out your own crap and work through your own stuff. It
And
is
I would encourage people to work through their own crap because your child does not deserve to carry your crap. And yeah, I know we all have things we've been through, but I'm just going to say this as a parent I am today. Your children didn't ask to be here. They didn't ask for what you've carried in your life. It's your job to be the pattern breaker. It's your job to say, no matter how I feel, no matter how I was treated growing up or what I've been through, I'm going to address this in the present. I'm going to address this from love. And I saw a quote that I love. I think it's by Rumi, but it says, "Don't do it for love, do it from love." And you should be living your life doing things from love. And then when you really reflect on that, it changes a lot of how you approach everything. And I would even add that it really makes you have to own yourself because now you're going to go, "Oh, why would I respond that way? Oh, I'm feeling all this anger and stuff right now for no reason. This is ridiculous. Like, what is going on in me right now?" And that recognition will happen.
absolutely. At the end of the day, none of this is about shaming anyone or pretending certain things doesn't exist. You know, growth in this stuff really just begins with awareness and um, I think that the goal for this conversation isn't to tell anybody what to think, but to encourage everybody to think a little bit more critically on the topic. You know, there might be some different things that in our past or things that shape us and then we can address. And if we're really willing to look at this honestly instead of avoiding it, that's when we can really start to understand what we can do on an individual level to be the change we want to see in the world, and it'll affect those around us. So, all
Definitely.
right. Well, I appreciate everybody for tuning in this week. If you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share the show with a friend. And we will see you guys next week.
See you all next week. And if you've never watched Star Trek and don't know who Data is, I highly encourage you to get into it. Trey hated it for years and then he changed his mind. It's a very deep show. I loved it growing up. I love it more as an adult because when you're a child, teenager, you don't really get things. And then as an adult, you're like, oh my goodness. So it's a great show.
I never thought I'd end the episode on a Star Trek quote, but all right, guys, thanks everybody. Have a good one.